everybody, and welcome to another edition of Speaking Of. I'm Steve Weissman, the InfoGov guy at Holly Group, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Bryant Duhon, content marketing consultant, longtime friend of the show, who has a ton of experience in the information spaces, and thus is uniquely qualified to talk today about how to propagate our information governance messages throughout your organization, either to get it moving in the first place or to reinforce things you've already done. This kind of communication is what content marketing is all about, and not coincidentally, it's key to IG success. So that's why Bryant's here, to tell us how to help win people's hearts and minds and call them to action. Otherwise, it gets that much harder to do information right. So Bryant, welcome, and thanks for spending a little time with us.
Thanks, Steve. So as always, it's good to talk to you and be here.
Give us 17 words about my reference. I'll let you say it instead of me like reading your bio, which I don't have to do because we've known each other forever. But right. you actually do have a ton of experience in the information space.
I've got a little bit. Been information adjacent for most of my career, right? So just a little by way of background, I've been a longtime editor, content marketer, inbound marketer in the content management, ECM, document imaging, capture, content services space, whatever word we're using today. Agentic AI is my current favorite one, or boat is another one that I just seen. Regardless, as Steve said, I've got a lot of experience in content marketing, and I found that actually being an editor was a great entree into being a content marketer, as the whole goal is to create and share content that's useful for your audience.
And of course, in our case, we're talking about an audience. Well, I guess it's like any kind of content marketing. We talk about an audience, air quotes.
Right.
But we're really talking about multiple audiences, especially in the InfoGov realm, where our audience includes everybody from senior executives who ultimately have to get behind any initiative to do a better job of taking care of information, to the people at the front lines working with that information so that they can do the right things with it.
Right.
It's the same goal, but the message in a lot of ways has to be tailored so it resonates best with each of those audiences.
Right. It's your basic content marketing or marketing really persona problem, right?
Yes.
You have your executive persona, and you have your worker bee persona. And you just if you're creating content in this space as an information governance vendor or consulting group, obviously you need to know who your target is, who's giving you the money, where your money is coming from. Obviously, the decision makers are going to have that spending power, so you want to appeal to those guys with sort of that the business case, the why, this is going to save you money or make you money sort of an approach. But at the same time, you also need to capture the lower end, the influencer guys, with sort of the flip side of that message is of what's in it for those guys is that it's going to make my professional life easier. How am I going to do it? And then hopefully between the two of those messages, they bubble up. You don't get any put if you sell into a company, you've already got buy-in from the lower end. You've obviously have buy-in from the C level. That maybe they meet in the middle, and you get a nice, perfect implementation, as they all are, right, Steve?
Well, I was going to say, when was the last / first time you saw that?
We live in hope. We live in hope.
Yes, we do. That's a town in Pennsylvania, I think, or is that New Hope? I guess. No, that's Star Wars. But we digress. All right. Let's talk a minute about this notion of personas. I mean, I went to marketing and PR school all those many years ago, and
right.
We would talk about that. In that context, it was more consumery than businessy in terms of developing these personas. Knowing what you know, which is a lot, about people in organizations that would be the one charged with making information governance happen, what kinds of advice would you have for the person charged with making InfoGov happen as they try to engage with these various audiences? Are there particular
Oh,
tricks to getting inside the minds? Any kind of tools or exercises?
you mean from the standpoint of getting into the getting from an information governance professional, what they should look for in the vendor marketing, or vice versa?
Well,
What?
we can talk a little about vendor marketing. I'm thinking more in terms of selling it internally.
Oh,
So,
yes, yeah,
because,
okay,
and just
yeah,
by way of context, almost, I'll dare say, every engagement that I do results in some kind of frustration to greater or lesser degrees
hmm
with my client, the point person within the organization, saying, I can't get people on board with this.
right.
There's a lot of pushback. They don't want to do it. They don't understand why. I've explained it 100 ways from Friday, which I know isn't the expression, but tomorrow's Friday, and I'm looking forward to it. Um, so I
So
spent a
this
lot of
is
time coaching them in terms of, well, how would I, to use the phrase, market this kind of content internally to the people I need to have engaged to make this happen.
yeah, that's kind of that gets into sort of that change management
Yes.
question, which we've talked about a little bit off and on over the years. And I'm not a change management expert, though I do think obviously change management is a huge piece of any technology implementation. And my opinion is sort of, it's like that piece that's always overlooked. Hey, training. We don't need to do any training. People will just pick it up on their own, right?
Yeah.
Setting that issue aside, I think I think it boils down to a communication problem. I think,
That's
and
why you're
that is,
here.
that is, um, say it over and over and over and over again until you are sick of repeating it. And right about that point, that's when your audience is starting to get it. And this applies external, internal, whatever. It seems to me that a couple things. A lot of people sort of give lip service to sort of that internal communication. Personally, I've never seen anyone do this, or I know that people have, but I've never like read in any detail about this. But treat it like a marketing campaign. Literally, I mean, it's an internal marketing campaign to get people to use a piece of technology that I'm assuming you've sunk a fair chunk of change into. Has always struck me as it would behoove you to figure out how to get your people to use this thing, take advantage of it, to deliver the business value that you want out of it, right? So, from a marketing standpoint, I would approach it as a marketing problem. Okay, you know who your personas are. You've got a little bit, Patty over there in development is a little bit cranky. She doesn't respond well to being berated. Paul over here is happy go lucky. You can tell him whatever he wants to do, and he's going to do it. So you got a little bit of an advantage there. But I would pull together, like you would, like I almost think of it as like a content marketing plan. Here's the thing that's coming. Here's why it's going to be good for you, and then here's how you take advantage of it, and more importantly, here's how it's going to make your life better. Whether that could be, it's going to be initially, it's going to be, it's going to take some time and pain to figure out how to do a new process or learn a new tool. Fine, suck it up, Buttercup, just do it. I think there is a little bit of element of that because I've been the guy in a company having to learn a new tool, and it's like, I don't want to do this. But at some point, it's the tool. Suck it up, Buttercup. Use it, right? Just part of life. And then it's just, and I lost my train of thought there a little bit with the suck it up, Buttercup part. But it's just keep pounding the message home. Oh yeah, and the third thing is this is how we're going to use it. And explicitly tell people how to use it, show them how to use it, because that's, as we said a few minutes ago, that's really one of the biggest failures, sort of that lack of training, that lack of communication. Hey, your life is going to change. Here's how it's going to change for the better, and here's how to change.
A lot of times the frustrations that I hear from our point person or the point team is,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I'm so sick of hearing myself talk.
Right.
And I keep telling them, and there's a part of me that says, if you're in there talking about this, reinforcing the message, saying it pretty much the same way every time, and they're still not getting it, maybe we need to rethink the message a bit.
Yes. And there is an element of that as well. Figuring out what that right message is. So I said earlier, pound the message until you're sick of saying it. Yeah, I mean, it needs to be the right message, and that's actually a really good point. It's after a month or X amount of time, you're still getting blank looks when you're explaining the same thing. Then you're probably are explaining it wrong. You need to sort of look inside and be like, all right, what am I doing wrong? How can I dumb this down, sex it up, jazz it up, whatever, to make the message go through. Because that's your job. That's your job. It's your responsibility. It's not sort of this is sort of a side point, maybe a segue or a non sequitur, but it's not their job. It's your job to make them care. It's not their job to sort of care automatically, which is coincidentally, I think Steve has heard this. Steve has heard me tell this to vendors. No one cares about you. It's your job as a marketer to make them care. Context for that was always webinar sponsors who 70% always seem to get it that, okay, we're going to share some useful information for an audience, and 30% were like, no, we're just gonna tell everybody how wonderful our product is. And I would tell those people, no one cares. And after the survey results always revealed,
Nobody
no
cares.
One cared.
So, and you said it in so many words, really the emphasis is what's in it for them, the recipients of the message. What's in it for them? Why should they care? Relevance people. I think what I'm hearing is a key takeaway from this brief conversation is make sure you're keeping it relevant. And to me, that involves vocabulary, because the people in the corner offices often use different words even than the people at the sitting in front of the screens to describe the same thing. Never mind that there's often a disconnect between what the people in the corner offices think the other people do and how they do it. That often doesn't line up. Also,
well, that's a problem. That's a problem we're not going to solve today, Steve.
No, but I do think for the folks watching, that is an important point to bring up. We're back to the persona thing, which I guess is perhaps the first takeaway. Think carefully about your personas, and then secondly, make sure you craft a message that's relevant to each of those. It may not be the same.
Yeah, I also wanted to sort of pick up on the point about relevance. The way that I always think about it, and I write about this frequently, is always be useful. Back when I was doing Inform for AIM, we're writing about enterprise content management, document imaging, and scanning, and I always just said, it's like, nobody's reading this stuff for fun. They're reading it, well, I guess some sick people, twisted people.
I know, I can think of a few people.
Maybe the AIM fellow group may have been reading it for fun.
Hey,
but most people were reading it to find out how can I do my job better? What some tips or things like that. So I always and I think of marketing the same way. How is this going to be useful for whoever my audience is? And useful can be anything from what you think of as useful. It's like, how do I get from A to B, and what are the steps along the way? Or if you're an entertainment company, useful could be making someone laugh. Or I think useful depends on the context of what you sell and what your services are. But I also think that it's a very useful concept to have in mind as you're thinking about what you're trying to convey to your audience, whichever audience that happens to be. And as far as words, the other thing, and I had to beat this out of myself when I came out of grad school into the professional workplace, use simple language. People read at an 8th grade level. I try to write for a 6th grade level. I hit 4th grade level through Hemingway the other day, and I was like super stoked. It was just exciting. It's like, don't use a big word just because you can. No one cares and gives a shit about your vocabulary. Use a small, simple word. Be concise. Be clear. Be simple. Use simple language. don't confuse people. Talk to your internal marketing department. See if you can get a little bit of time from them to have them help you clarify your message. If not, maybe consider going out and hiring someone. Say, we're going to create an internal marketing campaign for to try to figure out how to, move hearts and minds and communicate effectively. That might be a valuable use of fairly not a lot of money to even do that for fairly large return, I would think.
You talk about going to the marketing department, and immediately what comes to my mind, and I suspect other people's minds, is, oh, I can use AI for this. And that's pretty much what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. In all honesty, I use ChatGPT and Claude the most, and I'm still figuring each out. In a rough sense, ChatGPT is great for. You can just put in a simple prompt like create me a communication strategy for making the case for my information governance implementation. Write me craft a couple of messages that are going to resonate with the C-level. Craft me a couple of messages that are resonate with the worker bees. Obviously, you need to fine tune that a little bit, but it's something as simple as that will give you probably about 80% of at least the structure that you need, and then you can just go through and fill in the blanks. Because a content marketing strategy for, if I were to do one for Steve, or if I were to do one for myself, or if I'm going to do one for an information governance company, the basic steps are the basic steps. The magic is in the words and pulling and trying to figure out, okay, how do you make that connection between need and what you're selling and what the customer wants, and sort of make that connection of giving them exactly the knowledge that they need to make a decision, and hopefully that decision is to buy something from you, right?
Or to get on board with an IG
practice, or to get on board with an IG practice, or whatever you are selling. But the other thing, the other reason to write yourself is writing is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just outsource your thinking about a blog post or a white paper or whatever to whatever generative AI engine you're using, you're skipping that not knowing part in your own head. So you're kind of cheating yourself as well. You're eliminating in some way you're eliminating knowledge from your own brain, which seems self-defeating in the long run. But what do I?
I really like that. And by the theory of transitivity, I'll put your comment with one of my own favorite saws. So writing is thinking, courtesy Bryant Duhon, Esquire. And for me, I've always said, and the thinking is the work.
Yeah.
The thinking is the work. Before you get too far down the path, what do we want to do with our information and why and all that stuff, you
absolutely
really need to think it through. What really, it's another one of mine, right? What business problem you're trying to solve? And let's start there and think through what role does information play in that problem, and what are the problems that are stemming from information? I won't even say mismanagement, because it may not be terrible, but you find ways I can make it better.
It's sort of it's like what, 80% a cookie cutter approach, but it's that 20% that really is where the magic and difference happens.
Yeah, and you just said the same thing about the marketing. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, marketing is ain't rocket science. I mean, it's not changed. It's how do I convince someone to pay attention to me, to hopefully give me money down the road.
Bryant Duhon, it's always a pleasure. Y'all come back
Steve.
Again real soon now, you hear?
That's right. Y'all come, right?
Bless your heart.
Hey! No, that's the rude part. Bless
I know.
Heart.
That's why I said it.
That's oh.
Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Steve.
People tuning in, talk to you soon too. Keep those cards and letters coming. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time. This has been Speaking Of with Steve Weissman, the InfoGov guy. A Holly Group production.
Is there an epidemic of open cabinet doors on the part of men everywhere? And she's like, you would be surprised.